What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the Rockabilly build series. In this series, we're going in depth through each of the steps that it takes to tackle building one of the Rockabillys. We've done two videos so far, one on stage 1, one on stage 2. In this video, we're tackling stage 2.1 and stage 3. Stage 2 in the previous video, that was the most difficult stage of this build, in my opinion. From there, it's not all super easy, but it's easier than what we did so far. So in this video, like I said, we're gonna start with stage 2.1, which is a little bit of bracing and some laser cut part install to the chassis setup that we've kind of already done. And then from there, stage 3, we're gonna start adding some more to the rear of the chassis set. Up to this point, everything in this build has been the 3/16 DOM material. So true tubing with a hollow center, as the name would suggest. In stage 2.1, we are going to be doing quite a bit with this 1/8" solid rod. So I just went and picked this up at Lowe's because I was out, and these are like $5 or $6 for a 4-foot stick. You are going to find a template set up again. All of the tubes in stage 2.1 are straight. So in this template, you'll find the lengths that you need. You will also notice that the grooves are smaller in all except of the last one. This one is 3/16 still, the rest are all 1/8". Now, I didn't explain in the previous ones, but in the build download, you will find image files in there that have these numbers that correlate to every tube. So when it says rear door brace, if you don't know where that is or it's not obvious to you at all, just check the images that are in there and you can see exactly where it is. And from there, you can also see how many of each that you need. So rear door brace, we're gonna need 2 of those. 15 and 19 braces. I didn't have a descriptor on here, so referencing that image will be super helpful. Now we also have our fixtures for this stage, which are a different style than previous, and we'll get into exactly how you install those once I get all of the pieces cut using the template. The fixtures in this stage are different because they don't support the whole tube. They're just supporting one end at a time. And I'll show you exactly how that works, and specifically, since this is with smaller material, it just is a little bit different type of stage. But what we're gonna do first is install the fixtures. So this first one here goes up in the windshield frame, and we're gonna zip tie it here on the outsides. Now I do want to continue using the foil, so before I get this fully zip tied in, I'm going to go in and foil line this section of the jig. Before I get any further in, I'm going to go ahead and just pre-foil line all of the remaining fixtures. Next, we'll look at these 2 fixtures here. So these fixtures go into the window area of the driver and passenger side. The side that has more of a pronounced notch to it, that goes to the roof, and that's so that it works around the laser cut part that's already in place. So we're gonna put that in, and then it will be located by the portion that goes around the A-pillar, and that should clear the other pre-existing fixture easily. You can zip tie those in place now as well. We'll repeat that same process for the driver's side. And then the last one is for the rear portion of the chassis section here. So this goes in from the bottom side, goes in place, and is retained by the 2 rear belt line bars. Now at this point, I'm gonna grab one of the pieces of solid rod that we cut previously. This is the shortest piece, which is for the A-pillar wing, and that is right here. Now, as I mentioned, the differences between these fixtures and the previous is that, again, only one side is supported. These are also a solid rod, and they're a little bit long, which gives you room to cope the length down to where you need to be. Now, you don't need to file these to have the round profile. They're a small enough diameter that all you need to do is get these cut to length, and then they will just go into place as needed. Placement of this bar here is non-crucial. It should land about where the joint with the upper windshield bar is, just for kind of a, completeness of bracing everything. The lower door sections are slightly more obvious because they go from where that meets the joint down to the corner of the door area on the rear, as well as the corner of the door area in the front. Now this one is at a steep enough angle that you are gonna have to just make sure that it gets cut at that same angle, but working with solid rod is much, much easier, so you shouldn't really struggle with that. These are going to be a pretty easy overall setup. The two bars that I want you to pay a little bit closer attention to are the two that are gonna go in the windshield area here. We're going to use this piece of laser cut steel as a reference. Now, this has got two notches on the top that you can see there. And those are the two notches that we want to make sure line up with this. So what you want to do is set this in place and visually center it. And now I'm going to make a mark where those two notches are. And now I know that the tubes need to go from this upper to that position, and from that upper to that position. What I'm gonna do right now is I'm gonna get the pieces of tubing put into place as they would need to be, and I'm gonna take and I'm gonna mark where the proper, like, outward facing flat plane is on the tube. And that's gonna be a bit of a reference for me because I am going to cover that up in a second, and I do like to have that information just so that I can be sure I've got everything at the right angle. Now, it can be a little difficult to kind of hold everything while putting the cap on. So I'm gonna get the cap started first. I do like to use slightly longer hardware on these caps. I'm not gonna tighten them down all the way though. Now I'm gonna take those pieces of tubing again and I'm gonna reinsert them with all three of them in place. It starts to get tightened up, but we're gonna go in and tighten that hardware the rest of the way. So now those three braces are in place and I can tack the exposed ends of each side. And that's all you're gonna do with them in the fixture. Once you've got the ends tacked, we're gonna remove the fixture and then we'll tack up that last joint at one time. In the rear, the center upright is that 3/16 inch piece of tubing, and it is a bit of a tight fit because you have both bars in place already. So you're gonna wanna cope that until you're able to do a nice snap fit into place. I'm gonna get everything cut, fit, and into the fixtures so I can get this thing ready to weld. So the bracing is all welded in now, and at this point, before we move on to the next stage, we do need to do some of the laser cut parts. Now, these also are for body panels, and they also need to be tapped for M2.5. It's easiest to do this if they're still in the laser cut parts tree because they're a lot easier to hold. But if you've already cut them out, then you just need to work on your holding a little bit. You can clamp them to the edge of a table. I'm gonna do the same thing with pre-drilling or pre-chamfering with a spot drill just to get rid of that hardened lip. And then I'm gonna tap these for 2.5 on all of those locations. In the photo of stage 2.1 in the download, it does show where all of these go. But in case you don't have that in front of you at the moment, this one here goes in this top corner in this location. This longer one has a point at one end and a round at the other. The point goes into the top of this location. So we're gonna put it up there like that. And lastly, this version, the point goes into the corner of that brace. Now these pieces don't have a fixture to be held into the chassis, so you are gonna have to get these held in on your own. The easiest way to do that is with some small magnets. I keep a small stack of magnets around and I just use them in like a location like this. You wanna try and make sure that the tab is parallel with both the upper bar and the lower bar when you're doing it. So just get it into place, get it held, and then tack one side. Now it's often said that magnets can affect the arc of a TIG, and I'm not discounting that, but I've also done this many times and never had an issue with it. So just put a small tack as far away from the magnets as possible, then pull the magnets off, tack the other side as well. And then just repeat around. Now, since this is for the body panel, these are gonna sit to the outside of the chassis, so try and bring those tabs as far out as possible, just for the easiest, install of your body panels without getting like warps as you tighten them in. Stage 2 is done. The tabs are in on both sides. So now we can move on to stage 3, which has 3 fixture pieces that need to be installed into the chassis. And I'll show you exactly how these drop in. It's easiest if you flip the chassis over to get these installed, but this one here is for the rear portion, and it is going to go from there and then slide back into place and sit right there. And you'll zip tie it in place all around. Next, you'll have these bars here. Now, these 2 bars that are parallel with each other, those go onto the seatbelt bar and the lower brace here. Now, we still have this portion of the tube in, and that's good because we're going to be using that. So it's going to sit right there. And now we can zip tie this one in and then do the other side. So with those 3 fixtures in place, you can start to see a little bit about how that rear is going to come together. But we also have 2 pieces of laser cut material that we need to get installed, and that is these 2. So this portion here is the rear lower floor section, and this is going to be the structure for our rear shock tower or rear shock tabs. And these are both going to get bolted into those fixtures. But first, it is good to go ahead and tap these to 3 millimeter, not 2.5 like we've been doing. They're not all used. They're there just in case something pops up, an idea comes together, you have something you want to add down the road, you've got a bunch of mounting holes. We're only going to use a couple on each, but for now, go ahead and just get them all tapped. The shock tower version is going to drop into the chassis right about there and get bolted in, and it should match up to the tubes on each side perfectly as well, which it does because the fixturing has just worked out so well. The other one is going to drop in right back here. Now also, since these are a tapped piece, you're not going to be threading into the fixture. You're going to use a regular M3 screw, and you're going to go from the top side of the fixture and thread into the steel parts. That'll hold them nice and secure, and that way you're not double threading both a metal and a plastic piece at once. Fixtures in place, laser cut parts attached. Now we got to get back to bending and cutting. These are the only 2 templates that you need for that on this stage. And again, we've got a mix of both 1/8 inch 3/16. So if you look at the jig itself, you can see the outside 2 are 3/16, and then those inside 2 are a smaller diameter. So this piece here is what will do the rail that goes from the bottom up and then back to this section here. So one bend is all that that piece has, and this one template will be for both sides. So there isn't a left and a right, it's just the one. This does note that this side here will be the side that goes towards the front of the car. So it's the side that will meet up to that bar. but just make 2 of those. Again, we've got the same situation with the template that's got the raise that's calibrated to my bender. So follow that. The other ones are straight. Now we're just gonna go through the whole process of notching and fitting again. I've got my 2 tubes bent, my 3/16 tubes cut to length, and my 4 1/8 inch braces cut as well. Now for this one, I'm going to start by putting the rear lower bumper bar in, which is this longer one here. That's gonna go in because it doesn't get any copes, and both of these tubes are going to match up to it and then to the other side of the chassis. Also, make yourself a reference note to depict what side is the front side of these tubes. I just put 3 little Sharpie marks so that I know that I'm putting it in the proper way. The 3/16 tubes for stage 3 are in the fixtures on the chassis, looking good. Don't forget to put your foil on there, otherwise you have to take everything back apart and then reinstall. The pieces of 1/8 inch are not part of the actual fixtures, so after we get these tubes tacked in place, we'll put those in once we remove the fixtures and do our final welding. I welded out the rest of the 3/16 tubes for stage 3. Now we just have left the brace tubes. So we're gonna get these fit and into place. These, again, no fixture for these just because of the kind of how tight and everything gets in this. So you are just gonna have to fit these and tack them in the old school way. But just a little bit of patience, get a good fit, and things should fall into place. Now, I'm going through the steps of the build as I designed it. Now there are a number of like member created option parts and things like that that I also have available that you can purchase through like Send Cut Send. For example, one of them uses a longer side panel, and if you decide to do that, you need some extra tabs that need to be welded on the back side of the chassis. I'll put a link to some of those extras down in the description below that you can order from Send Cut Send separately. And if you decide to do that, you'll just need to take a look at what they are and how they offer it and go from there. I'm building this like my first one as I originally designed it, but those are some really cool parts that are available. Similar to some of the other tabs, I'm using a magnet to hold one end, and I'll get this side tacked, then remove the magnets, tack the other side. And that finishes up stage 3. So we tackled stage 2.1 and stage 3 in this video, and that finishes the entire rear of the chassis. So we're all done with that portion. Now we only have the front left to do, which we'll tackle completely in the next video. Now from there, that'll complete the actual fab side of the chassis for the most part. We'll be able to get through the rest of that, but we will continue on in the series and show the assembly, the electronics, and I have some other stuff that I want to do with the electronics in this video. Now, as I mentioned, I'll be using a Vanquish VRD Carbon as the base for this one instead of the straight axle like I have in my previous version and what this was initially designed for. So we may make some modifications to set up for the portal axle version versus the straight axle that I did before, but this chassis is versatile, and there's a lot of adjustability built into this chassis, which I've never done in one of these chassis designs before, and I was super happy with how it came out. So we're gonna get into all of those details. And again, if you're interested in tackling this project or the Moon Buggy project that's very similar to it, there's a link to it in the description below where you can find the download package on my website. Now, this is so far becoming a weekly series, and if you want to see any of these videos early, you can join the channel membership side where you get all of them as soon as they're put up there. So if that's something that interests you, there's also a link in the description below to that information. But with that, appreciate you guys following along on the next Rockabilly, and looking forward to finishing this thing. So if you enjoyed it, hit the like button, subscribe if you're not already, and we'll see you on the next one.